Two words scare new options traders more than almost any others: exercise and assignment. They sound like a workout and a homework assignment. But they're really the same simple thing seen from two sides, keeping a promise. This is the moment all those option deals actually come true. Same toy robot, one final piece. Let's tie the whole series together. Here's the foundation. Every single option has two sides. On one side is the buyer who holds a right. They get to choose whether to use the deal. On the other side is the seller who holds an obligation. They must do their part if the buyer chooses to. It's a promise between two people. One person can decide to cash in the promise, and the other person has to honor it. Exercise and assignment are just those two actions, using the promise and being on the hook for it. Let's start with exercise, the buyer's move. To exercise an option means to actually use your right. Remember Lucy's coupon to buy the robot at $10? If she decides to use that coupon and buy the robot, she is exercising her option. She's cashing in the deal. Only the buyer, the one holding the right, can choose to exercise. And they'll usually only do it when it's worth their while, when the option is in the money. Exercise is simply the buyer saying, yes, I want to use my deal now. Now the other side, assignment, the seller's moment. When you've sold an option and the buyer decides to exercise, you get assigned. That means it's your turn to keep your promise, whether you feel like it or not. If Lucy had sold someone the right to buy her robot at 12 and they exercise it, Lucy is assigned and she must hand over the robot for $12. Assignment isn't a choice for the seller, it's an obligation. When you sell options to collect premium, this is the exact moment you signed up for. Let's see it in the strategies you already know. Remember the covered call? You own 100 shares and you sell a call, promising to sell at 55. If the stock rises above 55, the buyer exercises and you get assigned. Your 100 shares are automatically sold at 55. Traders call this getting called away. It's not a glitch or a punishment. It's exactly the deal you made. You collected the premium up front, and in return, you promised those shares at 55. Assignment is just that promise coming true. Now the cash secured put. You sold a put, promising to buy 100 shares at 45, and you set the cash aside. If the stock falls to 45, the buyer exercises and you get assigned, so you buy the 100 shares at 45 using that cash you had ready. Traders say the stock got put to you. Again, no surprise, it's the exact deal you signed up for when you collected that premium. Assignment on a put simply means you're now the proud owner of the shares you agreed to buy. Here's the catch to respect. As a seller, you don't get to pick the timing. Assignment usually comes at expiration if your option is in the money, but in some cases it can happen earlier without any warning. So if you sell options, you must always be ready to keep your promise, have the shares, or have the cash. The classic beginner mistake is selling options for the easy premium and forgetting that a real obligation is attached. Never sell a promise you can't actually afford to keep. So what do you do about assignment? First, don't panic. If you get assigned, the system is just doing exactly what your trade promised. Often, it's a perfectly fine outcome. You sell shares at a price you liked, or you buy a stock you wanted. But if you don't want to be assigned, you can usually close the option early, buy back the promise before it's exercised, and you're off the hook. The key is to stay aware, know when your sold options are in the money, and decide in advance whether you're happy to be assigned or want to close first. So here's the whole thing in one sentence. A 5-year-old could repeat. Exercise is when the buyer uses their right, and assignment is when the seller has to keep their promise. Same event, two sides. It's just the moment an option deal finally comes true. And that's exercise and assignment, those two intimidating words turned into a simple promise being kept. If you bought the option, you can exercise, use your right. If you sold it, you might be assigned and have to deliver. It's not a punishment, it's the deal you made coming true. Know your obligations before you sell, and options stop being scary. If this tied it all together, subscribe, because we explain every scary trading idea like your 5, one at a time. This is for learning only, not financial advice.